All right, so we're going to make a composite image like the one that you can see in front of you where I'm sitting inside of a shark, rather uncomfortably I might add, but well, I did survive, so what the heck. In order to make this, we need two separate images and we're going to put them together. And to do that, to assemble them, we're going to use a program called the Gimp. So I'll just get that loaded. The Gimp is great because it's freeware, which means that you can do this sort of thing at home, well, anywhere where you have a computer. All right, when you first load the Gimp, I've had a lot of students have problems when they go to close it. And if you click on one of the toolboxes and close it, instead of actually closing the image you're working on, you'll actually close that dock. And next time you open the Gimp, that dock's going to be gone. You can restore it by going Windows, Recently Closed Docs, click on the right button, the one that you've just closed, and it should restore it for you. Instead of that, though, what I would suggest the first time you use the Gimp is click on Windows and select Single Window Mode. This will make your life a whole lot easier. I'm going to move this over a bit. I'm going to make a little adjustment here as well too, just to widen that out so we can see the tool options a bit easier. And I'm going to make that fit pretty much full screen on my desktop. Okay, I'm going to open up the two images. So we'll go File, Open, and I'll grab the two images off my desktop. There's the shark. Then I'll go File, Open again, and I'll grab me. It says, do you want to change the orientation? Normally I would say rotate, but I'm going to say keep orientation. The only reason I'm going to do that is so I can show you how to turn it. We've got two tabs up here. We've got a shark, and hey, wait a second. Oh, that's not what I want. Let's try that again. We'll go File, Open, and I selected the wrong picture. There we go. Open the great white. As an embedded color profile, okay, in this case you can choose to either keep or convert. I'll choose convert. All right, we're back to our two tabs. This time I've got the right shark loaded, and I've got me here. Now you notice there are two separate photos, and at this point that's perfectly fine. We are going to combine them, but I want to clean this one up a little bit first. It's going to make my life easier. First thing I've got to do, quite obviously, is, by the way, I'm going to select the Move tool, just so I don't accidentally draw or do something else on top of this image. So I'm going to go Layer, and I'm going to go Transform, and I'm going to rotate clockwise. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the Scalpel tool, which is actually the crop tool, and I'm going to select the area I want to crop. And if I want to fine tune these a bit, once I've selected it, I can actually move any side in or out, and I'll get a position where I want it, click in the middle, and I've now cropped that image. Next thing to do is we need to add transparency, because if I make a selection and then remove it, what will happen is it'll just turn it white or whatever my background color is. But I don't want to do that. I want to be able to see through, and so I'm going to go Layer, Transparency, Add Alpha Channel. Now that doesn't actually do anything that we can see. You'll just have to trust me though, that will allow us to create a transparent layer inside of this graphic. Next, I'll click on the Fuzzy Select tool. It's going to do most of the work for us. You can see that there are some selections we can make. I think I might pick feather edges, and I'm going to drop that down to maybe 5. And all I want to do is just maybe smooth the selected edge slightly. Oh, you might have to click here to make that. There we go, close enough. When I click, oh, by the way, the threshold is set by default to 15. And we'll have a look at what that means. Okay, so the first click that I made, you can see it actually took away part of my head. And that's because the color of the background, the white color, is very close to the shiny spot on my forehead. And so I'm going to have to hit Control Z to undo. And I'm going to drop the threshold down here so it's less sensitive in terms of, well, actually it's more sensitive in terms of the colors that it selects. It'll just select white now, and hopefully, there we go, that's much better. But you can see that's just going to remove the top part of the picture. If I hold down the Shift key, what I can do then is, and I'm holding the Shift key with my left hand, and you can see that little plus sign, and what I'm doing is increasing the selection. That's coming across pretty good actually. There we go, I've almost got it. So the right combination there was to adjust the threshold down to around 6, hold down the Shift key, and continue to click and select. And that's done a pretty good job. Control X is cut. And you notice it's still selected. We can still see that, that border. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to go select None. You could also use the hotkey shortcut, but that works fine. You can see there is a bit of a white edge around the edge here, and that is because I may have left the feather edges too high. I'm not really happy with that actually, and if I had more time I'd probably go back and want to clean that up. Actually, maybe what I'll do is I'll just undo, and what I'm going to do is uncheck feather edge and then hit Control X, and let's see if that makes a difference. No, it did not. Okay, so I'm going to undo again, continue to undo the selection. Okay, and now I'll reselect without feather edge selected. Hold down the Shift key so I can do multiple selections. Keep going till we've got pretty much everything selected. And I'm clicking in areas that are not selected. So what we're doing, in fact, is adding on to the existing selection. You can see there's a little bit of a problem over here. That's fine for now, though. So we'll go Edit, Cut. And, well, did that do a better job? Maybe not. Anti-aliasing may have been part of the problem there. I'm not going to worry about it at this point. We'll go Select None. And yeah, you can still see a bit of a white glow there, but close enough. Okay, next thing we want to do now is take this image and put it into the other one. And the easy way to do that, in Photoshop you could just drag. You can't actually drag. I don't think that works in this version of the GIMP. No, it does not. So what we'll do is we'll go Control A, which selects everything. Control C to copy. We could also have done that up here. Select all. And then we could have done Edit, Copy, but I like to use the hotkeys. Then we switch to our other graphic and paste it, which is Control V, or we could have gone Edit, Paste. Okay, next thing we need to do is rotate it. Now we already rotated this image once. Oh, by the way, when you first paste it, look what happens. It becomes a floating selection, a pasted layer. That is going to be a problem unless we fix this right now. If we click the anchor button, look what happens. It creates a single frame or a single layer. And a single layer is going to be a problem because if I want to change the position of me, watch what happens. Everything moves, including the background. That's because we anchored the copied selection, the picture of me, we anchored that onto the background. I'm going to undo that, Control Z. And I'm going to undo again, Control Z one more time. And now I've got that floating selection. How do we make that its own layer? Well, it's easy. We click right here, create a new layer, and add it to the image. Now the difference, what we've done, I'll click it again. Now if I click on the Move button, watch what happens. I can move the picture of myself independently of the background because it is a separate layer. Okay, I might want to change the scale here, but actually let's rotate first. And again, we could use the layer, rotate, transform rotate. But instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is use this rotate tool, which allows much finer manipulation. And so I'll just twist it like that. We can move this out of the way, by the way, and we can actually get this pretty well lined up exactly the way I want it. That looks pretty good there. And we'll click rotate. By the way, I could have also used, here, let's click on that one more time. As we rotate this, there, move this out of the way. We could also drag here. We could adjust the angle more accurately. There's a couple of little ways that we can change the kind of sensitivity of making that adjustment. So here I am, and I think I want to make myself slightly larger. And so what I'll do is I'll go Layer, Scale Layer, and I want to change the size of me in proportion to the background. Now your image may be much larger and you want to shrink it down. The technique is exactly the same. What we're going to do is make an adjustment to the width. You can see it's 1038 pixels. I'm going to bump that up. And I guess really what I should do actually is change the background, because if you make it larger, it's just going to kind of blur it. So instead, I'll select the great white shark. I'm going to go Layer, and I'm going to go Scale Layer, and I'm going to drop it down in size. So instead of 2560, I'm just guessing here, I'm going to go, I don't know, 1800. And I hit the Tab button. Notice the chain link has not been broken. That means that it will proportionally change the size here. I'll hit the Tab button, and look what it does. It changes the height, or the y-axis. We'll click Scale, and we'll watch that shark shrink in size. And there we go. Okay, the shark just got smaller. Now, if I wanted to, what I could do as well is crop this whole image like this. I'll just drag over top. And that's going to crop. When you use a crop tool with layers, it crops everything, the entire image. I can also zoom in a bit. We're at 33%. I can change that to 50%. That's a bit better. So I can zoom back in a bit. I shrunk the image down. Now I've zoomed in so I can see it a little bit larger. Okay, I've still got my two layers, and I can hide one if I want to. There we go, I'm gone. Click the little eye and I'm back again. I could hide the background if I want to. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to just reposition myself a bit. I'm close to where I think I want to be, but let's just move over just a smidge like that. Maybe down a little bit too. Now there's a bit of a problem here because of the angle. It doesn't quite look right. The image I took of myself should have been from a higher angle, so I could kind of see the top of my head, and it would, 45-degree angle from above, which is the angle that we're looking at the shark. That's going to be a bit of a problem here. Now we could try to use the perspective tool. Sometimes this does a pretty good job, and sometimes we end up with some problems. But I'm going to drag the bottom in here. And so what I'm trying to do is make the perspective actually change on the picture of me. I'll move this out of the way. That might be slightly better. We'll try it, transform. You don't always get great results. It looks like my head's been stretched a bit, but that's okay. We'll just go with that. That's fine for now. You could always experiment a little bit more with that. And I'm going to move myself again, maybe right about there. You can see that if I had a picture with a little more of my body, that would have been good because I could have hit it behind the teeth, but I'll show you a technique to kind of fix that up a bit in a few minutes here. All right, another problem that we have now is I do want to be in front of this part of the shark, but I want to be behind this part, the mouth area here. And so this kind of complicates things. I want to be sandwiched between parts of both or two of the same image, really. And so what I'm going to do is duplicate the bottom layer, the great white shark. I simply click here, and it makes a duplicate. You might be wondering what I'm doing here. I'm going to drag that up above the picture of me, and now I seem to disappear. And that's because whatever image is on the top takes priority over the images that are beneath. If I click the I button here and make that top layer disappear, I reappear again. Okay. What I want to do, I'm going to actually hide the bottom layer so that when we start making changes here, we'll see those changes reflected on just this layer, and we'll see me start to appear as I cut stuff out. So I would probably want to zoom in here. So let's go to 100%, and I'm going to just drag like this, and we're going to cut a section of the mouth out here. So what I'll do is I'm going to use the Paths tool, and I want to do a fairly careful selection here. And I'm going to click, and every time I click, what happens is, oh, and by the way, if you click and drag, you get those little Bezier curves, which allows you to make kind of a curve selection. I'm just clicking right now. The tooth is fairly straight. This really doesn't need to be perfect. You want to, I mean, obviously you want to do a good job, but we don't have too much time to spend on this. Okay, and in a second, I'll do another curved one right here. So I'm clicking, I'm holding down, and then dragging right away. If you just click, it simply puts a point. But if you click and drag, then what it will do is make a nice little rounded selection. You know what I probably should have done was gone up there for this, but anyway, that's okay. We'll come out here, move around, keep going, and now I'm just going to guess. So I'm going to actually go back to 50% here and continue that selection. I can really be generous with the cutting now. I just want to make sure that my head fits underneath. So I'm removing all of this, and don't forget that whatever I remove here is going to be replaced with whatever layer is underneath. By the way, if you hold down the control button and click, I guess it's command on a mouse, or on a Mac I should say, that should close this curve, and it's not really working. Okay, anyway, what we're going to do next, it should fill in hopefully. We open up the Paths dialog, and you can see it saved my selection. But what I want to do is I want to make a selection out of this. So it saved my path, I should say, not the selection. If I click the Path to Selection button, what it will do is, luckily for me, it closed it up quite nicely. It's something new in this version of the Gimp. And we now have a selection, But not only do we have a selection, it's also saved as a path up here. So if we ever wanted to reuse that selection, we'd be able to do that, which can be really handy. We're going to go Edit, Cut, or Control X. And when we do that, we're going to see a large gaping hole. Now, I forgot to do something important here. You might know what that is. And I'm going to go up here to Layer, Transparency, Add Alpha Channel. Then, we notice once again we've got our path here. I'm going to click the Path to Selection. Okay, I'm going to go back to my Layers dialog and make sure I'm on the right layer, which I am. If I were to change layers right now and then click the Cut button, it would apply that selection, that cut, to the bottom layer. So obviously I got to select the top layer. I want to cut a hole here so I can appear. So we go Edit, Cut, and one more time what I've done is cut out that a piece out of that top layer, very carefully around the teeth and the mouth, but then a little more generously around everything else. Now watch what happens. If I make viewable the bottom layer, we're going to be able to see that underneath. Look at that, there it is. And now I'm nicely sandwiched in between those two layers, which is what I wanted. We can't see the boundary between the top layer and the bottom layer because they're exactly the same. Incidentally, I've got a selection there. We can go Select None. We can also go like this and just click any other tool. And what it will do is then get rid of that, that path that we had selected. This is coming along pretty good. I'm not happy with that white around here, but anyway, that's the way it goes. I'm going to select that layer. I'm going to use this tool, and I'm going to just move myself down slightly. Just so that, there we go. And I'm going to darken this whole area down here because you can see the only last problem that we have is it's just too bright. It looks like I'm standing right in bright sunshine, and there should be a little bit of shadow which would result from the mouth and the teeth in particular. There's a number of ways to do this. We could airbrush it, but I'm going to try and do this the easy way if I can. And I'll go to the paintbrush. Let's see, I'll select, yeah, that brush might do it. That should be fine actually. Oh, well, maybe this one here. Now I'm going to increase the size fairly significantly. I'm going to zoom in one more time here. I'll go up to 100%. And I'm not changing the size of the image. I'm just changing the scale of it so that I can work on a larger viewable area. Now, it looks like some other problems here. I wasn't really careful when I selected that background, and there's a few artifacts left over, which really I should go in and remove. Anyway, I've got this layer selected, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the paintbrush, and I just want to darken. I've got black selected, and I'm just going to kind of darken around here. Now, the only look what happens though. As I want to just make myself a little bit darker. But when I do that, it actually goes off and affects the entire layer. So you'll see why what I'm about to do is going to make a fairly big difference. I'm going to isolate just me here. I'm going to use the Select tool to select everything except for, oh yeah, this is a big problem here. This needs to be cleaned up. I'll come back and do that afterwards. So anyway, I've selected around myself, but I haven't actually selected me. So I'm going to go Select, and I'm going to invert that selection. You know what? This is the right time. I'm going to select None. This is the right time to clean that area up. And I think the easy way might be just to use the eraser. And if I erase this, it should just, there we go. It's going to clean that up fairly nicely. Just be careful if you decide to erase it, you don't actually remove anything that's important. Okay, I think I've got most of the artifacts that were left over. Let's go back and do that same last step again. So what I'll do is select the fuzzy select tool. I'm going to select, but what this has done is selected the outline around me. And if I were to click Control X right now, it doesn't actually do anything. Why? Because I've selected the area outside of myself. If I want to select the area inside of this selection, I need to go Select, Invert. I've inverted the selection, which means I've now selected me. To prove that, if I go Control X, I actually disappear. I hit Control Z because I want to be in this picture. So next step, I'm going to re-enable. I'm going to keep myself selected there. And the reason is, with myself selected, if I go back and re-enable the paintbrush and draw, now as I draw, and I get to the edge of that selection, it does not continue to draw outside of the selected area. This is good so that I don't have to worry about any of that color spilling over onto the other areas of the picture. I'm going to hit Control Z because I'm really not happy with that. I've got the size quite large. The angle's pretty good. Hardness is all fine. Maybe I'll drop that hardness down. It's at 0.25. Let's see if I can drop that down. Spacing, hardness is 0.5. Oh, I might not be able to change that. Spacing, let's see what happens if I increase the spacing. What I'd like to do, oh yeah, that's a bit better. What I'd like to do is have that a little more, a larger area that's kind of fuzzy. Now I'm just, okay, I want those teeth to show up as well too, and I'm just going to kind of make up roughly where I see those teeth. It's not going to be perfect, obviously. That's okay. And I'll keep going. Now you can see that there's an area down here where I do want to color in black, and so I'll need to go back in and clean that up a bit. Okay, that's not bad. That's pretty much close enough to what I'd like, but you can see that there's an area under here that needs to also be blackened. And what I'll do now is simply select the layer underneath, and that should color over top. But it's not working because I have a selected area on this layer, and it will not let me color outside of that selection. So I need to go Select, None, and now I can color underneath. Now this is amazing because it's coloring and it's staying almost perfectly within the lines. Why is that? Well, because this top layer, let's just make that top layer invisible. Remember that top layer was cut away. I've cut out a section of that. And so now when I color on that bottom layer, the top layer or the top two layers overlap it. And so we can only see the area of the bottom layer that's actually exposed. And so it looks like I'm coloring fairly carefully. This could maybe be a bit of a gray color as opposed to black. This is far from perfect, but that's pretty much all we need to do for the sake of this project. And yeah, that certainly could have been done better. But anyway, that's good enough for now. I hope that you're able to use this recording and that it works out okay for you.